From the outside, Jamie Dornan and Amelia Warner looked like the perfect Hollywood couple, the quiet kind that didn't need flashing lights or red carpets to prove their love. For years, they seemed untouchable, a family built on privacy, respect, and quiet devotion. But behind those carefully guarded smiles was a story few ever saw, one of distance, exhaustion, and a love slowly fading under the weight of fame. Their story began beautifully. Jamie, long before his 50 Shades of Grey fame, was a rising actor and former model trying to find his place in Hollywood. Amelia, a talented musician and composer, had once tasted the spotlight but preferred to live in its shadows. They met in 2010, a chance encounter that turned into something extraordinary. Friends described their connection as instant, like two people who had been waiting for each other their whole lives. They married quietly in 2013 and soon became parents to 3 daughters. For a while, everything seemed perfect. Jamie would often speak lovingly about Amelia in interviews, calling her, "my anchor, my calm, and the best part of my life." Amelia, in return, would describe him as gentle and devoted. Together, they seemed to have built what every celebrity couple dreams of: stability. But perfection rarely survives the spotlight. When 50 Shades of Grey premiered in 2015, Jamie's life changed overnight. Suddenly, the world saw him not as a husband or father, but as Christian Grey, a global sex symbol. He became the fantasy of millions, the face on billboards and magazine covers, the man every journalist wanted to ask about those scenes. Amelia, who valued privacy above all else, struggled with it. She was proud of his success, but the attention was relentless. Every red carpet appearance came with invasive questions. Every photo of them together was dissected for signs of tension. And when fans began comparing her to Dakota Johnson, the pressure grew unbearable. A close friend once revealed, Amelia never blamed Jamie, but the fame made her feel like she was living in someone else's story. At first, they tried to ignore it. Jamie limited interviews, kept his family out of the spotlight, and often emphasized that his home life was sacred. But fame has a way of creeping into even the most private spaces. Between filming commitments, press tours, and months spent abroad, the distance between them wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Jamie later admitted in an interview that being away so often took a toll. "You want to be everywhere at once, for your career, for your family, but you can't. Something always suffers." Friends say that was when the cracks began to show. Amelia's music career had taken a backseat to his, and though she never complained publicly, those close to her noticed the quiet sadness that lingered behind her smile. She missed him, one insider said simply. But she also missed herself. For Jamie, the guilt was constant. He loved Amelia deeply but struggled with the identity Hollywood had given him. The man who lived 2 lives. One in front of the cameras and one behind closed doors. "It's hard to come home and switch off the noise," he confessed. "You start to lose the version of yourself that they fell in love with." By the time his later projects, A Private War, Belfast, and The Tourist, began filming, their relationship had quietly changed. They were still affectionate, still supportive, but something unspoken lingered between them. Communication became harder. The laughter that once filled their home was replaced by polite silence and long stretches apart. People around them noticed. They were still a family, a source explained, but the spark wasn't there anymore. They cared for each other, but they were living parallel lives. In one of his more reflective interviews, Jamie hinted at that distance without naming it. "Sometimes love means knowing when to stop holding on to the version of something that used to work," he said quietly. Those who knew them say the decision to separate wasn't sudden. It was a long, slow understanding that they had grown in different directions. There was no scandal, no betrayal, no anger. Just the bittersweet reality that even the strongest bonds can't always survive the noise of Hollywood. By the end of that year, friends say, Jamie made the hardest choice of his life. To end things, not out of resentment, but out of respect. He didn't want to hurt her by pretending things were the same, one source shared. For a man who had once built a career on playing fantasy, this was the most real moment of his life. And as the world continued to see him as Christian Grey, the truth was far less glamorous. Jamie Dornan was quietly living a heartbreak that fame could neither fix nor hide. When news of Jamie Dornan and Amelia Warner's quiet split began to circulate, the reaction was a mix of disbelief and heartbreak. For years, they had seemed untouchable, the rare Hollywood couple who had built something private, grounded, and real. There were no public fights, no scandals, no dramatic headlines. Just a love story that, for reasons only they fully understood, had quietly reached its final chapter. But for Jamie, the end wasn't sudden. It was a slow realization, a painful awareness that love, no matter how deep, can evolve into something different. In a rare interview months later, his words hinted at the truth. Sometimes two people can love each other and still drift apart. It doesn't mean it wasn't real. It just means it changed. The world wanted a scandal, but what existed between Jamie and Amelia was something much quieter, a story of acceptance, of two people choosing peace over pretending. Those close to Jamie said he spent weeks alone after the decision, avoiding cameras, interviews, and events. He retreated to the Irish countryside, where he could breathe without being reminded of what he'd lost. "He's not the kind of man who breaks easily," one friend shared. But this broke him. During that time, Jamie poured his emotions into his work. On set, he was focused, professional, but in quiet moments, his sadness showed. Crew members from one of his film projects later revealed that he would sometimes walk off set after emotional scenes, taking long walks alone before returning to film again. "He didn't need to say anything," a co-star said. "You could see it in his eyes. He was grieving something he couldn't talk about." Meanwhile, Amelia focused on her children and her music. For her, creating became a way to heal. Friends described her as resilient, calm, and deeply private. "She doesn't dwell on bitterness," one insider explained. "She believes love can end beautifully, too." Despite the separation, neither Jamie nor Amelia spoke ill of each other. In fact, they went out of their way to protect what remained of their bond. They still attended events together for their children, shared holidays quietly, and maintained mutual respect. "There's still love there," a friend said. "It's just a different kind of love now." When Jamie finally returned to interviews, fans noticed a change in his tone. He spoke with a kind of fragile honesty that hadn't been there before. "I think people assume heartbreak always means anger or betrayal," he said in one sit-down. "But sometimes it's just sadness, knowing something good has run its course. I'll always be grateful for what we had. Amelia was with me long before everything got crazy. She believed in me when I was still trying to believe in myself." Those words struck a chord with fans around the world. The man once known for his intense, almost untouchable characters was finally showing his most human side. He went on to reflect on the challenges of fame and marriage, admitting that balancing the two was harder than he ever expected. "Fame doesn't ruin love," he said quietly. "It just tests it in ways you can't prepare for. You start losing time to listen, time to be present. And one day, you realize that love needs more than just good intentions." It was one of the most honest moments of his career, a glimpse into the man behind the image. Friends say that even now, Jamie and Amelia remain on good terms. They co-parent gracefully, still supporting each other's projects. Amelia continues to compose music, while Jamie has found new purpose in his acting, more emotional depth, more vulnerability, more truth. During a film festival Q&A, a fan asked Jamie what love meant to him now. His answer was simple, yet profound. "Love isn't about possession or perfection," he said. "It's about gratitude. Even when it ends, you can still be thankful it happened." There was a pause, a small smile. Then he added softly, "She'll always be part of who I am." You don't lose people like that. You just carry them differently. And that, perhaps, was the real heartbreak, not the end itself, but the quiet grace of letting go without hate. Because in a city known for chaos, Jamie Dornan and Amelia Warner showed something rare. That even heartbreak can be dignified, that love can end without destruction, and that sometimes, walking away is the most loving thing you can do. Their story wasn't about failure. It was about evolution. Two people who grew, who changed, and who chose peace over pain. And though the world may always remember Jamie Dornan as a symbol of passion and intensity, those who know his heart understand that his greatest love story was never about glamour. It was about learning when to say goodbye with grace.